Okay, can you guys hear me now? How's my audio now? How's that sound? Okay, for some reason the mic setting in the streaming software just was not set for, and I didn't change anything, but we don't know. Okay, guys, so let's get going. We'll run for about, I typically run for about an hour. And if you're new to these live streams, we basically have, we go through charts. We're looking for trade ideas for the next week. I'm looking to cover any kind of charts you guys want me to look at. I just kind of scan the comments. So leave a comment or a question of something you want me to look at. And again, everything that I'm looking at is not, we're not going to give trading advice or anything like that. I'm not giving financial advice. It's just literally what I see in the charts. We're going to use technical analysis, try to find the trade ideas and read everything that the chart can tell us. All right. So right now, I'm obviously looking for more short ideas, but we'll take any longs that come up as well. But I think given where the market's at, I think there's going to be opportunities for some more selling. I'm looking for some selling price action next week, especially in the SPY, and we'll see if we get it. I don't know if it, to me, it looks like a good setup for a short. So, I went home over the weekend short and short the index. I've still got some individual stock shorts that I've talked about, individual trade ideas, but went home short I actually went home short the SPY. I flipped over from the Qs to the SPY. This Qs looks like it could potentially rally a little bit more, whereas the SPY was basically closing right at resistance. So I took that one. IWM looks like a good short as well, personally. So I might add to that on Monday. But you'll see, if the market wants to rally higher and pop, then we'll just stop out, right? All the positions and the strategy and style that I really talk about on my channel is all about taking your entries right at key levels. So and one thing you have to understand is when you're taking an entry at a key level, there's always going to be there's usually some whippy action right around that moment in time. There's you've got market makers running stops, you've got, different funds, playing around when you're at key levels. So you have to be prepared for that. And that's why reading the candlesticks is really important. Those candlesticks will give you an idea of what's possibly going to happen in the future. All right, let's get into the charts. Let's start out. I'm going to start at the top. And, if you guys want to just leave what you want me to look at in the comments below, I'll just start scrolling. SQ. So we're going to start out here. Someone early asked me about SQ. They took a short 2 days ago, is what they said. So, all right. So one thing, so I guess that means you took a short right here on the May 12th. So obviously the best entry for the short would have been back here on May 10th. All right. That's right around the key level. That's where I took the short at, was right there on May 10th, because that's where you got the break of the trend line. Now, there was more risk right there, because you just initially got the break of the trend line. Here's your daily chart. See the break of the trend line? There's a trend line right there. And you got the break and the daily close. It wasn't super impulsive, but it was it was below the trend. Now, there was more risk because you had the risk of a false breakdown. And the next day they could have popped it up. But again, I took it right there. The next day they popped it up right to resistance, but it rejected. And it closed basically right there at that trend line. So again, risk there because you're not quite sure. And then the following day, it was more obvious that all of a sudden that this thing was going to sell off. So as of right now, this thing's on a sell signal. So if you want to know if you should cover your short, well, I didn't cover my short. I can tell you that going into the weekend, I'm still short SQ. Why am I still short? Well, look, we're below the trend line, right? So now I'm expecting a couple things. One, I could see a bounce back up to the trend line. That's completely possible and within the realm. So you have to be comfortable with that, and that's all. And that's why position sizing is important, right? It's important to take a position size where you can take on the losses and you don't emotionally get frustrated and then just can't take any more of the pain. If you can't take a little bounce back to resistance, then you're too heavy in the position. That's one lesson that, after trading a long time, you'll learn that. And just bring your position sizes down to where when it goes against you but does not change the technical structure or technical picture of the chart, you can ride it out. And so that's what I would say about that. The other thing that I would say is, because we broke the trend line, we have a sell signal. If we bounce back to this trend line, I'm personally would be looking to add to a short position. All right, I'll use that as an opportunity to add at resistance. When I look at this, and if you look at the hourly, I was scanning this right before we started. Look, you've got, recently we made this lower low in price here on the hourly, and look at the momentum. Lower low in momentum. So there's no indication of like a bullish divergence or a change in momentum. Momentum is still down and price is down. You get a little pop in price, a little pop in momentum. There's no divergence. Divergence is usually the indicator that you're about to get a reversal in trend. The hourly, usually if you get a divergence in the hourly, maybe it's, could be good for a small pop. The daily is usually good for a much larger trend change. But again, I don't see any change in momentum on SQ. I just see downward momentum, downward price with bounces along the way. As you move down, you're going to get bounces against your position. I think a lot of people, when they get into trading, they jump on the momentum trades where they're just shooting like up. Typically it's long traders, but they're just going straight up and they're instantly rewarded. So they feel like, okay, right, I'm on the right side of the trade because look, I made money right away. And then when any of that changes, they don't know how to handle that. So the thing is that when you're swing trading, you're going to go down, you're going to bounce up. You're going to go down further, you're going to bounce up. Most people, after it falls further, that's when they start oh yeah, it is going to go further. Well, that's not the moment in time you want to be shorting. When something's falling and it's obvious, you should already be short if you're going to be shorting that thing. And but a lot of people wait till it's like selling off, and that's when they want to short. And the same when things rip higher, that's when they want to go long, is when things are just exploding the upside. I teach kind of the opposite, where I look for the opportunity to short something when nobody else wants to short it, or at least it's just starting to look like you maybe want to short it. And I look at going long when nobody wants to go long. It's contrarian in nature. All right, so I'm still short, and again, I'm looking at SQ. I think we're heading down to, the bigger picture over time, I think in the near future, you're going to see SQ down here at 135, 134.50. Again, as you approach a key level, if you're short, you want to cover ahead above that level. You want to get down and then start to cover. You don't want to wait for the last penny, even though it could overshoot it. You never know what it's going to do. So as you're in the money, take your profit as you approach that level. That's what I do. And that's where I think this thing's going, whether it bounces back. Now, where am I wrong? Well, if we bounce back to this trend line and we recover it, we start to hold above here and start to build, then I'm wrong. Okay. Another reason why I don't trade options, when I short, I sell short. I don't buy put options. I sell stock short. There's a difference. If you don't know what the difference is, you need to look that up, or you need to do a little more research. But put options have expiration dates. Selling stock short does not have any expiration date. So this can back test and bounce around. It doesn't affect me. Whereas in a put option, you've only got so much time, and then that option expires, worthless if it hasn't made its move. Okay, let's move on. What else do you guys got? I'm just kind of scrolling through here. All right. Dash. Oh, Fastly. We'll go to Yeah, you know, Bitcoin, I'm kind of bearish on Bitcoin right now. Let's look at that real quick. Sorry, you got to find these Bitcoin futures. So that's the trend that I have on Bitcoin. There's your daily uptrend. Everything's ripping. Everything's fine. Everybody's happy. We broke trend. And once we broke, and look at that gap down right there. Let me get rid of this trend line right here. But see the gap down? For some reason, this gap down right there, that's impulsive, an impulsive breakdown. You gap and just sell right off. Little bounce, sell off again. So level of support that I see is about 44.7. You know, I think we'll be there next week, most likely. You break that right down to about 30. Well, I've got it right about 30,800. Probably get a bounce off of that, I would think. You might even bounce all the way back up to 44, but likely to get a bounce there. You break that, heading down to 25,000. I don't see much beyond, much lower than that, but those are some levels to look for. All right, Fastly. This was one of those high-flying mania stocks back in, the shutdowns. And you can see, it was, this thing was just ripped from the lows to the highs. This thing ripped up 1,000%. That's a monster move for sure. I didn't catch that move, obviously. I wish I did. But, after it started to rip higher, I started looking at a lot of these momentum stocks, looking for where that momentum was going to fade. And you'll see here, I've got it circled. I must have covered this in a live stream. That's a divergent high that I pointed out. And that was the last high. That's the all-time high that this thing made. That's your last divergent high right there. And you can see it just went sideways ever since for the most part. And that's why these options, put options would they'd expire. But if you sell short, you can ride it out, and then you can see we broke, resistance, break with a big gap down. Again, these down moves, they usually come really quickly. So by the time it's obvious, it's too late, to short. That's why typically you have to be positioned short on something before it's just completely obvious. When it's obvious to everyone, these things just sell off real quickly. Stocks fall a lot faster than they go up. And that's why another reason why when you're shorting a stock, usually day in and day out, you don't get positive affirmation or whatever you want to call it. You don't get it. They're grinding you down day in and day out. You lose a little, you gain it all back plus a bunch more in one day. That's how shorting works. So the stocks take the stairs up and the elevator down. Fastly there's your support. That's the line that I had. Looks like we're below. As far as I can tell, bear flagging. There's a little flagpole right there. You got the flag. Maybe you break. Sorry, when my trend lines, because I use log scaling, they stretch when I move down. So you have to kind of measure it, measure it out. I've got, there's a gap right there. So we'll say right there, there's gap entry and gap fill. And that would be the target, I would say the final target if you're short that thing. There's gap entry and gap fill. Yeah, it's right about there. Okay, there's your support zone. 29 down to 25, 40. I think if I got into that zone anywhere, I'd probably look to cover. Yeah, that's what I see on that one. Moving on. I don't know what UPST is. Upstart Holdings. Not a lot of history on this. I have, technical analysis usually only works if you have, especially swing trading. You can day trade with shorter term time frames and use technical analysis, but for swing trading, it's best to have some history. There's your uptrend on this one. Yeah, I can't really make anything clean. Up here it's kind of choppy. No bearish divergence. I would just say there's your uptrend. And I would just, from my perspective, I would just ride this trend until that trend breaks. That's really all I see on that one. You do have a little bit, you could probably make out some sort of a downtrend line like that. We could be creating a symmetrical triangle pattern. So symmetrical triangle pattern is, where you've kind of got, you're squeezing into a triangle, and these can break either way, up or down. I don't have any negative divergence, so I can't say which way it would break, but I would just take the major trend, and just give higher weighting to the major trend, assuming it's going to break to the upside. But if you break to the downside, that would be your sell signal, I suppose. And then if you break to the downside, you've got a gap right here. So you're probably going to break, gap fill, bounce, back test, maybe then you roll over. Not a lot of history on that one, though. And then Dash doesn't have a lot of history either. DoorDash. Oh, boy. It's a bad IPO for sure. You bought this IPO and you're basically just, you got a little bit of profit briefly, but for the most part, trend has been down, making lower lows and lower highs. You can see low, there's a lower low, there's a lower low, and we've got a high, a lower high, and a lower high. So big day on Friday. I don't know if they had earnings. Oh yeah, they had earnings the day before, so. On this one, since there's not a lot of history, see, I can't really make this trend line because it's just not enough data, but you could maybe track that. I need at least three data points to give me a confirmation on a trend line. I only have 2 here. It's a cluster and then 1. So, but you could watch that in case it does get a reaction. I would say if this is going to hold as a trend line, maybe you pop up and get rejected there. And no negative divergence. So I don't know on that one. I wouldn't trade it. Moving on. Yeah, AMD, Neo, and Etsy. Well, I've talked about these. I've got shorts. I'm not short Etsy right now, although I kind of want to re-short it. But what I'm waiting for, so I was short Etsy pretty much up in here, riding it out, chopping around, and then it broke. I took my profit on that break. Okay, it broke down, took my profit. And, that was a trade. If you entered on the sell signal, which really came, here's your initial sell signal. I would say it was right about here, or the back test. There's a back test right there of this trend line. Both of those were objective entries. The back test was a beautiful entry. I mean, if you entered on that back test right there, that was a 35% drop from there down to there. So that's a great trade. And even if you got it on the initial entry, let's say you took it right here on that initial entry, you still got a 30% profit. So that's pretty good. But it chopped sideways and then broke all at once. And that's how these things work. So this to me looks like it's bear flagging, where you've got kind of the flagpole here, you're flagging out. See how it's just consolidating, not able to really bounce much higher, just kind of grind around flagging. I think we're going to make another break to the downside. The projected target is 122, which also falls in line with a support line that I have right down here. So what I'll be looking to do is probably re-short this thing on if it starts to break. If you get the sell signal and start to break, get another impulsive break, then I'm going to short it down to 122 and I'll cover down there. All right, that's the trade on that one that I see. Let's take a look at the hourly. Yeah, a little bit of bullish divergence on the hourly. You can see here on the RSI and the PPO where you're starting to build bullish momentum, and this was a equal low, so it's a divergent low. So you have bullish divergence. So, yeah, that, I don't like to short things when they have bullish divergence. That is, something that I don't like. So, I don't know. Maybe it does a fake out move. Maybe they make it look like it's going to break and then they reverse it. It's hard to say. Bullish divergence isn't necessarily a reason to go long or not short. It just gives you an indication that there's some momentum building. But that's just on the hourly. So, for all I know, it could just be good for a small little bounce, and then it could roll over. All right, moving on. AMD. I still like this one short. I mean, it could bounce around a little bit, a lot like what Etsy did. I could see us bouncing around even all the way back up to, this range, chopping around for a while. It could just, if I extend this out, you can see this is really, let me get the right tool. You can see here, this is the trading range that this thing's been in. About right there. And not on the upside, but there's your trading range this thing's been in. So we're at the lower end of the trading range. So this is support. So, it could bounce here. And I would put, I'd put a decent probability that we maybe get a little bit of a bounce. But here's the thing. It has negative divergence that's just been building for a while. So that tells me that the bounces are going to be faded. It could bounce and it's going to get faded. And it could bounce off of that and get faded. And then I think eventually it's going to break. And when it breaks, or if it breaks, this key level right here, 73.75, this thin zone right here, where there's just no trading, it just shot straight up and gapped up and just basically ran from this trading range here right up to this trading range. If you break, I think you come back down and test that, test that as support. So $59. I think that's a good target. Looks like a pretty logical trade to me with the negative divergence. So I'm going to just ride this out and wait for that break. And maybe even add, I might even add a bunch, take a heavier position if they give you the opportunity when it breaks. They might not give you the opportunity. It might just gap down, maybe gap right down to the halfway point and then sell off, or, I don't know. XLF, yeah, XLF hasn't broke, and I'm really watching that one. I've got that over here somewhere mixed throughout here. Yeah, there's XLF, hasn't broke, so it's just continuing to hold trend upward. We definitely want to see that break for for sustainable weakness, and or a broad-based sell-off. MGM. Yeah, all right. Someone says look at MGM, which is a gaming stock. Well, let's look at the Boyd one first, because that's another gaming stock. Very crystal clear uptrend line right there. Very, very clean. An obvious break right there. An obvious break of trend on this daily chart. So, little bounce. You break, you bounce. I think it's going to continue lower. So I'd put a pretty high probability we're going to hit this 55.40 level. That's a move down of another, about 10%. So high, the closer the trend is, the support line is, the higher probability you're going to hit it, especially on a break of trend like this. But again, this is a big, long, sustained uptrend that just broke. And when it broke, it had big negative divergence. I think we're going to get more than just this one. I think we're going to hit this, probably get a bounce, and then eventually break. And I would say, these are going to, 43, $44. That's a good target on this one. And then possibly all the way down here, you can see that was major resistance right there. And then zoom in, see this candle? Let me just focus on this one candle right there. See that candle? So there's your major resistance at 36.42. See how they popped it up intraday, but then sold it down? So it just validates that trend line. It was resistance here, finally broke here, and once you broke on that candle, it never dipped back below. It just continued to move higher. So we broke that trend. I could see us coming all the way down to 36.50. That would be my final target for sure. You start getting down in that area. And typically the way I do it is I don't have the full size position all the way down to the final target. I'll take some profit maybe at the first level, take some profit at the second, carry the final amount down to the final level, and exit the trade. So it just helps lock in the profit as it's working, and it makes it a lot harder for that trade to ever become a losing trade. All All right, what else you guys got? Oh, yeah, well, MGM. Yeah, so there's my trend line on MGM. It has not broke yet. You don't have a breakdown. You know, you started to break. You know, that kind of was a sell signal. They recovered it on Friday. So no breakdown yet. Negative divergence, though. Big negative divergence. I've been watching this one, obviously. I think it will break. This is probably going to be the final fake out move here. Sometimes what you'll get is when you have the initial break, they'll pop it back up and whip out any shorts, and then it'll break, and the next break will be the real deal. So I would just watch this for a break. I'm going to add this one to my watch list just to make sure. But I'd watch it for another impulsive breakdown or sell signal. I think that's going to be the real deal. And if or when we get that, levels to watch 32 and then 2350. And I would say 2350 would be the final target, but I think would be likely. I think it's likely we'll hit that if we start to get that sell signal. We just don't have that yet. Good trade idea though there. Good setup. Just need to see that impulsive breakdown, that sell signal. All right, what else do you guys got? What's HLT? I don't know what that one is. Oh, Hilton, the hotels. All right, so clear uptrend right there. And you can tighten it up. Use your hourly time frame to tighten it up a little bit. But that's good enough. Possibly a bearish rising wedge, It's, maybe starting to build that. We only have like 2 data points, 1, 2, so you can't fully say that's a bearish rising wedge. You also could move it like this and say it's just an upward channel. So we don't know yet on whether that's a bearish rising wedge. What I do have is an upward trend line. And I do have negative divergence that has been building, okay, on the PPO. And I don't know what happened to my labels here on the RSI and the PPO. Sometimes I'm moving around and clicking things, drawing lines, and I hit indicators, so I have to get that back. But PPO is the one with the 2 lines. If you don't have PPO on your chart, use MACD. For the most part, it'll give you the same information. Negative divergence. So you've got right there. See that divergent high? Right there. And see lower momentum, slightly higher high. And you see the candle. So at some point in time, you're like running way up here. Everything looks great. But, if you're looking at charts, you realize, oh, this is a divergent high. High probability of failure right here. Doesn't have to fail, but you have a higher probability. And that's what you got. You got an indecision candle right there. It sold off right down to support. So what my trading style is I wouldn't want to short this thing, even though you got a divergent high. That's not a reason to short. You want to wait for break of trendline support. And this is the major break right here, or this is the major trend line. So I need to see the break of that. You break that, clear, obvious. This one is, well, you've got a zone right here you've got a level. They've kind of, yeah, it's actually kind of right in there, right about there. We'll say zone of support going from 98.61 down to 93.78. All right, that's your zone of support. So if you get the sell signal, I think you head right down to that zone. That's where I'd be looking to cover. That'd probably be the only target on this one, is just right down to that zone of support. And I'd likely just cover at the top of the zone. Why, you don't want to get greedy, and you might get the bottom of the zone. You might just get the top. So what I would do is just as we enter and start to get close to the top of the zone, I cover right ahead of that level. But, let's say we break, from the trend line next week. We'll probably be out there. It's about a 17, 18% trade. That's good. You can knock those out of the park all day long, and you'll do well. All right. What else you guys got? ACN. So the first thing that's right when I saw that chart, see that doji, kind of that reversal candlestick, that was the first thing that my eye caught right when I saw that chart. You got a reversal candlestick. Now that doesn't mean anything all by itself. What I look for is confirmation to get more selling. So that is the next candle a big sell, a big red candle, and the bigger the red candle, the better the confirmation. But you still want to see break a trendline support. Let's see if we can find something here. Yeah, I'd say it's right about there. So again, it's not a reason to short. The doji's not a reason to necessarily short. You want to wait for a break of trendline support. The other thing is, I mean, you have negative divergence because you only made an equal high right there. That even might even be a slightly higher high. But it's kind of an equal high. Not my favorite short, I would say. Just doesn't have all the pieces of the puzzle that I really look for. You want to take the highest probability trades. Not bad, but yeah, I don't know. I'd probably just look for another one. You got the 200-day right below it as well. So if it breaks, you're going to hit that 200-day. Yeah, I don't know about that one. As of right now, it's just uptrending. So no technical damage has been done to the chart as of right now. All right, what else do you guys got? I'm just going through these. Cleveland Cliffs. Is this one of those SPACs? I think I remember hearing about this one. I don't know what these guys do. Clearly, I've charted it before, and that's what nothing's changed. You got a minor trend line right there. We're just continuing. You break that minor trend line, I think you head down to the major trend line, which is down here. So you can just mark that out on your daily chart. Negative divergence. It has just been building. So yeah, it's uptrending until it's not. Get the break here, then you probably move down to here. I'd probably cover down there, and if you get the break there, then likely going lower. And I'd probably look at this level right. See that resistance broke, and impulsive breakout. So there, I'd look at that as your level of support if you break this major trend line. But there's a lot of work to do to the downside. So but that would be about $9.08. Not my favorite trade either. But just because you got two major levels before you even break the major trend, it's just a lot of work to do. Yeah, I don't know where a stock's going to go next week, guys. That's the thing. A lot of people are always asking me what's going to happen in the future, and I don't know. The only thing I can say is what the chart tells me, and there, it will put probabilities in certain directions. So you trade the probability when it's in your favor, and but even if a probability is in your favor, you can still, draw that. You still get that draw that ace on the river, or something. So you can still get maybe you have a low probability of something happening, but it can still happen. So, that's why, again, time is not the time component to trading, I think, just adds an extra level of complexity that just puts the probability of you hitting winners just that much less. And I'd rather have high probability of hitting small winners than a small probability of hitting, you know, a bigger size winner. And it's all about batting singles and adding it up. But again, you know, shorting, you can hit big you can hit big winners shorting a stock. It's just, you know, I don't like puts because you got the time component. All right, what else you guys got? Overstock. Well, that's Bitcoin, so that's, you know, I just talked about Bitcoin because these guys have they're a Bitcoin proxy. There's your resistance. There's your range, basically. Well, I don't even know why I have this as the bottom of the range, to be honest. I'm not even sure I like that trend line right there. I'm going to put it right there. There's your range. Bottom, because you got a reaction there. So the bottom of the range is about 47.50. Top of the range, 85.31. And and yeah, so trade the range is what I would say. We break that range, then probably going to head down to about right there. $30. Moving on. Someone says Barrett Gold looking good. Yeah, it is looking good. All these gold miners, and it helps that all these other gold miners have bullish charts as well. I don't see anything where they're all, you know, they just continue to look bullish. So I'm going to ride that and stay long. And I've got I probably have 10 different miners that I bought. But I mean, you can see here on Friday, look at wheat and precious metals, new high. You know, they all didn't make new highs, but we're seeing a couple of them did. So Wheaton made a new high within this current trend. Frank, no, that one didn't. I mean, just scanning these. Royal Gold, new high. So, you know, a couple of them started to make kind of new highs. Newmont, new high. That's a nice bullish candle right there. So again, and Newmont's the largest gold miner. So when I see the largest gold miner making a new high and some of these others haven't, I still think that there is, the trend looks good is what I'm saying. Newmont's just about to hit the all-time high and probably going to break out is what I would say. Yeah. Taxes. Yesterday was a sad day for me, that's for sure. I had to send my tax payment in, and it was pretty substantial. But I guess there's worse problems to have. I would still short Tesla, and I didn't enter the weekend short on Tesla because I think we could get a little bounce. I'm looking for, maybe I'll be able to pick it back up short at 628 or something. So I covered it because we basically recovered the 200-day moving average. So I think we could get a little bounce. But I'm still looking to be short. We broke the trend. There's your trend line right there on the daily chart. There's your sell signal. And so a little bounce, and then I'll reshort it. That's how I'm going to treat it. And if it bounces back up and recovers the trend line, then I'm wrong and I'll cover. But I think it's likely going to bounce up, get rejected, and head lower down to 460. Yeah, IWM broke trend. I think maybe it closed right at... Yeah, see IWM. There's your March 2020 lows. Reaction. Sell signal, and a back test. So it's objective to, it was objective to enter the weekend short on IWM. Doesn't mean it's going to work out. They could pop it up, and this could be a false breakdown or a bear trap. But we don't know what it's going to be right now, and the probability says we get rejected at resistance until proven otherwise. So if that happens, I think we move down to 205 as the next level of support. What's W? Wayfair. That's what I got on Wayfair. Just a big sideways. And this thing's gone nowhere since August of 2020. Just kind of dead money, really. I don't see a trade on it, really. You break the lower trend line down here at about 225.30, then I think you're going to have a quick move down to 135. But it's just dead money right now. Yeah, I don't trade penny stocks typically, and if I do trade a penny stock, I reduce my size way down. You know, maybe I'll take let's say I take a position and I short something or go long something. It just depends on what it is. But if it's a mainstream kind of name and I'm taking a trade, maybe I'll short 10, 20 grand, something like that. And then, but if it's a penny stock, maybe I'll do 1,000, you know. I don't, you know, those are really elevated risk, so you don't need as much to make big gains, and so I reduce my size way down. It's kind of like icing on the cake if I ever take those trades. All right, guys, what else do you guys got? Zynga. All right, we haven't looked at that one. Gold. I mean, I covered gold. I cover gold in all my videos. I mean, I'm long gold miners, and I'm remaining long as of right now until I see something change. Zynga. I haven't looked at that one for a while. About right there. So there's your trend, still within trend. I don't really see negative divergence in this thing. I mean, there is negative divergence because you made an equal high in the momentum with a higher high in price, but it's not. I like to see the negative divergence just dropping off. You know, I like to see the momentum just falling as price continues to go higher. That's usually the best. So within trend, you get a break of the trend. You know, that'd be your sell signal. Until then, it's bullish. From what I see, if you break trend, looks like you've got some support. This is dual support right here. Looks like there's some support right about there at 961. So you break that, you're probably going to head down to about right here, 822. Again, not my favorite chart, not my favorite short there. Turbo Lou, thanks for the super chat. Appreciate that. What do you want me to look at? Airbnb. All right, so there's not a lot of history on this one. This thing's just been, you know, I mean, it IPO'd, rallied up, coming back in for sure. So because there's not a lot of history, these are obviously pretty difficult to use technical analysis. On the daily chart, we're just downtrending. We do not have any bullish divergence. Pretty oversold. Look at the RSI down at 2050. Now this doesn't have a lot of history, so I don't know how oversold this thing can get. You know, usually when a stock has a lot of history, you'll see where stocks have different, different identities where different ones will get different amounts of oversold and overbought. This one, because it doesn't have a lot of history, but traditional oversold says below 30 on the RSI, and we're down at 2057. Now that's not a reason it can become more oversold. It can remain oversold and just grind around down here as the price just collapses. So, but no bullish divergence, no indication on the daily chart that this downtrend here it is going to stop. If I look at the hourly, you know, slight bullish divergence because we made right there kind of an equal low, and we made the PPO looks like we made a slight higher low and lower price. So then you look for a break of trendline resistance, which is probably something like that. So yeah, I think we probably could get a little bit of a bounce. Where does this bounce go? Well, looking at the hourly, I'd say right about here. Somewhere right in there. Up to 163.22. Yeah, right up in there. And then, you know, probably going to get rejected right there and continue lower, but it's hard to say. That's what I see on that one. Could be wrong. Again, you know, if you're going to be long down here, you'd want to stop out if it starts to fail. Otherwise, you could probably just ride it long up to that level. Yeah, I covered Tesla already. Neo. Yeah, I think Neo's going down to this 22. Look, here's what we got in Neo. Uptrend right there from last year and stuff. Broke trend. Boom. Big sell-off. Kickback rally. Sell-off. Kickback rally. Sell-off. Kickback rally. Sell-off. Lower highs, lower lows. There's your high. Lower. This one made a slightly higher one, but still lower than the previous here. And then a new low. So downtrending. All right, we're clearly downtrending. Lower highs, lower lows. That's the definition of a downtrend. Let's look at the. Yeah, we're getting. You know, if you get rid of this bullish divergence, we do have bullish divergence on the daily, and the PPO. We have bullish divergence as well, although it's not fully confirmed because this is still pointing down. You'd want to see this start to point up. Again, bullish divergence isn't a reason to necessarily get out of a short or to go long, just the same as bearish divergence is not a reason to short. This could continue to diverge on its way down to 22 and then reverse. All right. As far as I can tell, I think it's going lower. Now, if it recovers this level right in here at 34.92, we'll have to look at that. You know, this might be a bear trap, and maybe they're going to run it up. So, things to watch. A couple more minutes, I'm going to wrap up, guys. Trying to give everyone an equal opportunity. Oh, Tavares. Thanks, man. Thanks for the super chat. Let me look at Amazon. Okay, so Amazon's been dead money for almost a year now. All right, I've got it marked out. I've been watching it. You know, Amazon ever since July, you know, almost a year, a couple months till a year, but almost, has pretty much been dead money. It's just been chopping you to death. Running up, you get hopeful, everything's great, sells off, you're depressed. I don't know how people, you know, but in reality, it's just going nowhere. It's going up and down in this big sideways range. This recent high that it made was a divergent high. I've got it circled right there. So you can see the momentum is failing. So you made a new high on less momentum. So, you know, we have negative divergence, and I would say we're going to break to the downside if I had to put money on it. And I am through you know, the S&P 500, but I would say we're going to break to the downside, but you'd have to see it break first. And the level of support is about 2,930. All right, so it's going to be a struggle and a battle, but you know, if it breaks to the downside, then you have a major trend line going all the way back. I think I have to go to the weekly for this one. Yeah, here's your 2009 lows, or 2008, whatever, support and support. 3 reactions. So I'd say that's your major trend line. And, you know, we break this level, I think we head right down to the major trend line. All right. you see a break of the major trend line, which I don't know if we'll get that or not, but if you do get it, then, you know, we're likely in a bear market or starting a bear market. Because Amazon's really heavily weighted. Amazon's not going to break into a bear market and the rest of the market's going to hold up. The FANGs are likely going to trade together and they'll drag the market down. Copper. Yeah, let's take a look at copper. These commodities, real quick. These commodities broke trend last week. I think they're going to correct and pull in. They've already started. You can see corn, you know, it's starting to correct. So again, I talked about the area that I'm looking to go long corn. And as far as I can tell, it's right down in this area, 1760. You know, maybe it'll dip below a little bit. If it does that, I'd look for that recovery. And if it recovers that 1760 area, that would be your buy signal to go long for the next like higher in corn. As far as I can tell, corn is in a bull market. Started a new bull market. There's your bear market in corn on this weekly chart going back to 2014. Really, it started back in 2012. And clear impulsive breakout. So we come down, we correct, and continue higher. That's what it looks like to me. Copper. Yeah, I'd say copper's probably on a sell signal as well. Slight break of trend right there. Not super impulsive, but could get more impulsive next week. Clear negative divergence. See that right there on the daily chart. Let me zoom in. See? Lower high, and see how it's turning down? It's about to cross, make a bearish crossover with a break of trend. So I think copper comes in too. And probably, yep, right down to there. It's not going to be super accurate, but I would say right in there. I think copper probably comes down and hits this trend line, maybe 26.45 or, and this is CPER, which is a ETF, I believe. But yeah, I think copper is probably going to pull back. And that would be, you know, I don't know when it'll get to that trend line, but maybe a 7% correction in copper. You break that trend line, it's a different story. We're likely going to come much lower, but we haven't broke the trend line yet, so just keep an eye on that.
Dad, can we go to Nick?
Sorry guys, my kid wants to go see his grandparents. All right, we're gonna just we're gonna do one more and then wrap up. Let's look for a good one. You know, uranium. You know, those, I know those are hyped on YouTube. I've looked at those. They look like they're gonna sell off. I don't know. Let me. What do you guys got? You know, I don't want to cover uranium right now, but it looks like uranium's going to come in a little bit. Maybe I'll cover that in a video. What do you guys got? Anything interesting? Do one final one. Any new sectors or anything? So far, you know, MGM looks like a good setup. Maybe we trigger that next week. Again, BYD is a gaming stock. It triggered last week. So, you know, if maybe the gaming stocks are going to start to trigger sell signals. All right, so I'm going to keep an eye on MGM. That's one that I'll have up on my chart and look for a trade there. Trying to think what else looks. I mean, that was the one that probably stuck out to me as maybe the best setup out of this thing. Yeah, LVS, I mean, that's going to be very similar. I think crude's going to come in a little bit, personally. Longer term, though, I think these commodities look strong. Look like we're starting a bull market. Let's look at LVS because you know, we want to find the good setups, and MGM looked like a good setup. BYD was a good setup for last week, which, you know, worked out pretty well. So let's see what these other ones are looking like. This is Las Vegas Sands. See if we can find anything. All right, so there's your trend line right there. You've got some negative divergence. You know, even right here, there's negative divergence. Each one of these lower highs in the RSI kept making a slightly higher high. So you have negative divergence, but you have a trend line, and we haven't broke that. And you got the 200-day right there too. So see where it bounced off the 200-day. It's got some work to do. You know, you got to break the 200-day, then you got to break this major support line. So that one has got quite a bit of work to do. I'd rather, the MGM looked better. You know, looked like it was weaker, and maybe had we'll have an easier time getting that sell signal. But yeah, that's what I see on that one. Okay, that's all I got, guys. So leave me a thumbs up on your way out. I do appreciate that. We had, you know, how many times? We got 111 people. So thank you all for joining in. Hopefully I'm able to provide some value and give you guys some insight on how to look at these charts and everything. Check out the course if you haven't done so. I think I think it helps. It's a lot of the information that I've learned, and it works. You know, I mean, it's not going to work for everyone because it depends on how you trade, but if you follow the skill set, it's vastly going to help you improve becoming profitable and everything. So give me a thumbs up, check that course out, and I will catch you guys on Monday. Later.